Okay, get started now that I've got the recording working. Just a couple of announcements before we go on. As you know, next week is reading break. If you're watching the syllabus, etc., there are no university classes taking place next week. So we will not be meeting on Monday and Wednesday, just to make sure you have that in your minds that that's the reality. Also, just in regard to the actual assignments, just a couple of things for you here. I have almost everybody's speech. There are a few people I don't have. Here I got 1, 2, 3 people I don't have your speech at all. One student is here in class right now, and the other 2 will be watching it via recording that haven't got it in yet. And then I have one student that's going to be returning that speech because I couldn't get into it. So we do have almost all the speeches in, and most of your personal evaluations are in, except for the people who haven't handed in the speech or I haven't graded it yet. So just a reminder that that's what's left for us to be up to date. Next week, I will be grading your short little papers and getting, I won't send the paper back to you. What I will be sending is a return email and just say, here's some observations and here's the grade that I will be giving. Okay, so that'll be just for you just to be watching for. It'll be just a return email with my couple of observations and a grade. So
may I ask a question?
Yeah, who am I talking to? Marianne.
This is Mariam. Yeah. About the previous session, may I ask a question about the audience analysis?
Audience analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Go ahead.
You said it involves issues such as the needs and beliefs, and the second was this will influence the way the speaker designs his or her speech. I was not sure if I understand the second one.
Okay. I'm just looking that actually up just so I'm making sure. Okay. Just give me a second here. Okay. I'm just looking at I have a printout of my PowerPoints. What was the point again? I'm just trying to find it to make sure
I do believe that it was the not the last one, the one before the last one.
on important factors.
The A and B, the part one, the audience analysis is the identification and blah blah
Oh,
blah.
okay. Yeah.
It has part A and B.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with the part of B.
You understand A, but you don't understand B. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
you're saying this will influence the way the speaker designs his or her speech to have the most impact. Is that the what part you're asking me about?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So you're asking, what am I saying? What does that mean? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if I understand it
Okay.
well or not. Yeah.
Okay. Um, if I'm just trying to think of another example that takes you away from this. Um, if you were a medical doctor and a patient came in to you and you were trying to understand why they were there, and they began to share a symptom, and you kept asking questions to make sure you understood what they were experiencing So you would know what to do medical check on, and in light of that, what sort of medical response might be necessary. The issue as a medical doctor, you're trying to understand your patient and what they're dealing with right then and there so that you can more clearly respond to their need. You know, if they say to you, I have a pain in the side of my right side or my left side towards over on the side near the stomach, at least where the stomach is, which is in the front, we'll say, you would want to know that so that you would be able to begin to, like, for instance, press in that area to understand. And then when they jump at a certain thing, you know, okay, that happens to be a kidney or whatever, that this probably, because it feels a little swollen. But how would you, if a patient came in and said, I'm not feeling well, you wouldn't say to them, here's an aspirin, take it, you'll feel better. You would want to understand more and more information about what it is specifically that's hurting them. So as a public speaker, when you're going to be giving a speech, you want to understand your audience to the best ability. You can't understand them perfectly. That's not going to happen. But better to know as much information as you can about your audience so that you will be influenced about how you're going to approach the topic you're going to speak about. The more you know about your audience, the more you will know how to approach. So let me give an example. May not be true in your country, but in our country, in Canada, we have democracy. And in our country, every 4 years, in our province, we have an election. About every 4 years, we have an election. And so you want to run for office. You want to be part of the legislature. And so do other people representing other parties in the area that you're running in. Let's say you're running in my city, Abbotsford. And so you go around, you have talks with people. You meet in a gymnasium or some auditorium where you're able to share your thoughts. Now, in giving a speech, let's say you go to where I'm living right now on my street, this whole area here. One of the things you need to know are that it's multi-ethnic background, that the homes in this area run about $600,000 to $900,000 per house. And so the people like we bought this house for just over $100,000. That's how much inflation took place. Why am I saying that? Well, then you know a little bit about the economics of the people. You know a little bit about their background from ethnicity. You know a bit about probably some of their even values. Why is that important? Well, you go to another part of the city that is also voting for you, and if you go up into the north east area, it's a fairly well-to-do area, and houses usually cost more, etc. And business people live up in that area. Not that they don't live here, but they live up there. So you go to give a speech up in that area. So it's different in our area. It's more multi-ethnic background, where up in the Northeast, it's more mono-ethnic, more Caucasian. And so the sort of issues you deal with, still based on your principles, are going to be a little bit different. With an audience that are business people, when you talk about economic growth, you want to talk about being in partnership with them. You want to talk about promoting businesses so they can do well to create more jobs. With some of the people who live in the southeast area, which is another part, there's sections over there where people are not as well to do. You've got a lot more people depending on government to give them money to get through. You want to speak a little bit differently with them. So with the business people, you want to talk about how government needs to be in partnership to create an economy that grows and involves people. When you're talking about the people who live in the southeast part, you want to talk about how government wants to help promote everybody to be able to get a right education and to be able to pursue careers of significance for the future. And so government needs to be investing in their educational opportunities. But we're all in the city of Abbotsford, but we all have some slight different interests or slightly different realities. So listen to this again. This will influence the way the speaker designs his or her speech to have the most impact. When I'm speaking to business people, I want to talk about economic investments that allow businesses, maybe cutting the taxes so that they can use that money to grow their business. The people that are in the southeast area who are dependent on people, government to help them, I want to talk about how significant important people are. And we as a government in the future would like to invest in their development so they can be everything they want to be. But they're all part of Abbotsford. So I understand my different areas of my population. Over in this area here, it's a very family oriented. So I want to speak about the promotion of family. So that's what I mean. This will influence the way you as a speaker, if you're running for office here, government office, you design your speech so that it has great impact. So understanding your audience, you don't change your principles that you live by, but you change the language you use and some of the thinking you use to let them know that they're important and you would like their vote. Did I explain that or not? Did you get it?
Yeah, it was perfect. So what I understood is we have to work on the way we want to kind of um, uh, influence our audience.
Mhm.
So, will you work with us on this? For example, in our speeches, will you teach us how to have this impact on our audience?
Well, a lot of that I do in regard to coming back, for instance, when we talk about the introduction, relating the topic to your audience. So we talk about that, and that you need to think through what you say so the audience will want to listen to you. Um, you develop that by your own work as far as actually in your speeches that you'll be giving, where you are are actually thinking about an audience and what you need to say that will be beneficial to them. So I, for instance, I will be very much aware. I'm just looking up something here. Um,
Because anytime I want to have a speech, I'm afraid to become boring, and yeah, I think it's very hard.
oh, listen, public speaking is not easy. Public speaking at very best is difficult. And Mariam, you don't just take one course in public speaking and then become a great speaker. You learn the science here, and then you start practicing it in class, but then outside, and over a number of years, you can become a person that has impact. Let me just read something I have in my syllabus that you can actually read later. I say this on page 1. It's not me, I'm quoting from Plato. He says this 7 years, and it's on page 1 of the syllabus, about right down, almost down the middle. 7 years of silent inquiry are needful for one to learn the truth. So we learn truth in life, okay? But 14 years in order to learn how to make it known to an audience. What he is saying there is that the learning of communication takes a long time. to develop that skill and that ability. This course introduces you to these things and helps you lay the foundations. So when I say this will influence the way the speaker designs his or her speech, I'm saying to you, you need to do audience analysis, like not just in this class, but audience analysis when you're going to speak to an audience. You actually need to, and we're going to go into this a little bit more today, selecting the subject. You need to be always asking questions to understand an audience that you're going to be speaking to. And you have to seek out where you get the answers about characteristics of them. If an organization asks you to speak, you need to ask them about the audience that will be there. We'll talk about that. You need to do some Googling of an organization or an area of the country where you're going to be going and speaking to understand the people. However you can do it, you need to do it to understand the audience. I will give some things that you can do at the end of this topic here in how to, not the end, but at the end of the selecting the topic. I will be giving 2, 3, 4 things that you can do. It is at the end of this course, you won't become the most wonderful speaker in the world. Plato says, hey, it takes you 7 years to learn about and 14 years of practice. It takes a long time. I've been teaching this is my 39th year of teaching. I took courses. My minor in my doctoral program was university, college and university teaching. And I took that 39 years-ish ago, that course. And I'm still learning about teaching. So, I'm further ahead than I was when I started. So it does take time to learn how to, I'm just looking this up again, how I said that. Where is it? Here it is. How to do audience analysis, it takes a long time to learn how to keep watching and being sensitive to those issues, and then how to shape your speech. Let's see if I can give an example in my life doing this. It didn't happen overnight. I gave a speech to a couple of different women groups. There were women. And in one, they were professional people in as a legal secretary. But I was giving material was for life sort of things, but I gave it in light of where they were coming from. I mean, these women were professionals in every way you can think of. I gave the same material, but totally differently to a room full of mothers. And the objective was similar but different. And I had to think about the two cultures. I mean, they're women. All these women probably, if they're married, have had a child. Not all will have, but I had to take the same principles and shape it in light of their setting. And they're both, in my opinion, doing an incredible job. One was Professional Secretaries International. The others were women who were mothers at home. For the time, this part of their season of their life, they needed to be with their child until their child was ready to go to school. And yet the same principles were there, but I had to kind of rethink. One's in a professional setting of the legal system. The other really is they're professional in the sense of being mothers at home with children. And the same principles were there, but totally different settings. Okay. And so I had to keep thinking about the needs. for instance, in one setting, the needs were more at a professional, secretarial level with their human relationships, but the other who were home were more as mothers with young children developing and being ready to go to school. And their other human relationships were like with their spouse and their friends, which they only saw certain times, and then a lot with their children. But the same human principles were there, but totally different. I'm saying you learn that by asking the right questions. And when we go to right now this topic, selecting the subject, it actually will pick up some of the key things under 3 key questions or key factors that need to be considered. So will you come out of this course having everything together? You will have the principles, you will have practiced, and you need to keep taking it to another degree. Let's see, this form here, which I'll be sending you later, which is the evaluation form I use for the second and third speech. And I'll send you all of you an electronic copy in March, early March. You will know kind of what I'll be using to evaluate your next speeches, but then also I would keep a clean copy. I'd always hang on to it, because where you give speeches in the future, you'll be able to look at the principles are all here. Everything I'm covering in class will be on here, as far as the basic principles of public speaking. And you'll be able to use that with the experience of this class and other things that we teach about to shape yourself as a public speaker. So yes, this class will help you in that regard, but it's not like, oh, here it is. All you have to do is, I'm just thinking another thing. It's not, my wife cooks. She actually can, and bakes. She actually can take the powder and this and that and here's a cake. Well, you're going to have to learn, take this and this and this, and here's a speech. And my wife now, last week, not only made a cake for my middle grandson, or my oldest grandson, whose 9th birthday, but made this incredible cake. And that's what she's really well known for doing for her grandchildren. They actually say, I would like this. But she learned it over time, and she experimented and became really effective and efficient at it. And I mean, my grandchildren have asked for some really interesting cakes. And she's able to do that. She didn't, when she first started, she wasn't able to do it. But over time, practice. Lots of practice of teaching, lots of practice of public speaking will be necessary. So will that be covered? I'm saying that you will learn by doing some important things of doing research on your audience. It'll help shape your speech. I don't know that I've totally answered your question.
Thank you so much. Sorry for taking the time of your lecture.
No, that's fine. But everything won't just happen overnight. I don't expect you to come out of this class a perfect public speaker. It takes time to shape that.
Yeah, I know.
You know, but you got the idea here that what's really critical is that audience analysis is necessary, so you understand your audience, so that when you're trying to help them understand an important set of thoughts, you are spending time using their life experience and their language and their personalities, all these factors together, and lights slowly come on. And you learn it by applying, practicing. Anyways, that was still a good question. I kind of enjoyed talking about it for a second. So don't apologize for the question. Okay, can I get on to this one, everybody? Selecting the subject and the purpose of the speech. So let's get there. I'm hoping that we'll get done all this today. Selecting the subject and then purpose for the speech. So let's talk about that. So now you are going to be at some point asked to give a speech somewhere. It may be in another class. And you might say, well, hey, that's already decided what the subject is because it's based on that course. But usually there are lots of subject areas within any one course that you might speak on. And you have to make a decision, or sometimes it's made for you. An organization might call you and say, hey, we know you took that course on public speaking and you're comfortable standing in front of an audience. And so we would like to speak to you. We'd like you to speak to us about a particular area. So they select the subject, but not always. But if they do select the subject, there's so much within the subject that you could go into. Let me just demonstrate. I had a student in my last semester in a different course. And this woman is a nurse in a town, small city just north of us, across a bridge from Abbotsford. And she is married and she has 3 children and she has a small business. She's taking her Bachelor of Arts degree at Trinity Western in the adult degree completion program. At the same time, she's working on her master's degree. And when she's finished her BA and her master's degree, she wants to work on a doctoral degree. So she wanted to talk to me about that because it fit a topic we're dealing with. And I said to her, as I'm listening to you and our conversations, there's one issue you need to work through. And you need to listen to me carefully because I'm serious. You don't do this, you will not succeed. And boy, I had her attention. I said, listen, this world is full of topics, full of issues. And what you need to do within the realm, and what she was interested in was in the area of the medical world. She didn't want to be a medical doctor. She wanted to be a doctor of philosophy in the medical field. I said, the field you're looking at, and there's 2 or 3 fields she's interested in. One is the brain and brain damage, and then a couple other fields. And I said, you can't do all these. You must choose one, whatever it is. And I said, even when you choose that, you must narrow that study area. And when you walk through that study area, all of a sudden the world opens up to a whole bunch of material on that study area, and you must narrow in what you're going to focus on. If you don't do that, you'll be just confused and you're not going to finish anything. You got to get it narrow, really narrow. For instance, I did my doctoral degree at Oregon State University. I have a Doctor of Education degree. And I already knew, because of circumstances, I was interested in the sense of motivation in the workplace. And more specifically, I realized I was interested in job satisfaction, job dissatisfaction in the workplace. But as I kept working on it, I began to realize I wanted to do a specific arena of study in job satisfaction, job dissatisfaction in the realm of extrinsic and intrinsic motivators in the workplace. And I wanted to determine the different factors that can lead to satisfaction and or dissatisfaction and how they contribute to either or both. So I kept narrowing it until it was a pin, because it's a big field, but I had to find a way of narrowing in what I was going to study. When you're doing a speech, you can't cover everything. Your next speech you're giving is about 7 minutes, which if you read the syllabus, it gives a description. It is a 7-minute speech, which means for me, when I watch your speech, it's to be 6.5 to 7.5 minutes, okay? That you give your speech in. You can't cover the world in that. You tell me one topic you're really interested in, and we can start talking about it, and you suddenly realize, boy, that's a big topic. Okay, well, what in small part of the topic can you cover? And even then, you only have 6.5 to 7.5 minutes. You don't have much time. So you need to be very concise. You cannot just get up there. If you get up in the next speech and throw me a hand grenade that explodes all over the place, it means it hasn't got focus. And you need to have what is the purpose? We'll get to that next. What is the purpose of your speech? So selecting the subject. There are 3 key factors that are really important for you to think about. Okay, what specifically am I going to focus in on? And you need to take time to do that. So factor number 1 is you, the speaker. It's yourself. You're thinking about selecting a topic, a subject. Okay, you need to think about you. And here's some questions you have to ask. What am I interested in? What am I specifically interested in? If I were going to speak, and I don't have time to go through the whole class and say, what's one topic you'd love to talk about? But sit down and brainstorm and say, here are the topics that are really important to me. I can name 3, 4, 5 of them that really fascinate me. Okay. One is marriage. Always has fascinated me. Another is the issue of motivation. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation really interests me. Another area that's very important to me is the area of being wounded and learning to recovery from life's difficult moments, overcoming them. That really fascinates me. Those are 3 topics that just wham, wham, wham come to my mind right away that are important. And they're not the only ones. You must have 2, 3, 4, 5 topics that you just love, that you care about. Maybe you have one especially that's important to you. What are you interested in? You need to understand this. When you're selecting a subject and you're given a broad field, like perhaps people will say, could you speak on encouragement and motivation? Man, now that's a topic I enjoy. That's a topic I light up at thinking about, talking about. Love to do it. Love to do it. So then I need to think about, okay, what am I going to say in that? Because there's so much. I can only say I only have 7 minutes to speak. If I were in this class, I have to keep it very, very focused. But I need to start off with understanding what I'm interested in. And when I find one topic I think I'll speak on in this class, then I have to say, okay, but I can't cover everything because 7 minutes isn't long enough. So what are the 2 or 3 key things that need to be said? Whatever that is. On a piece of paper, not now, on a piece of paper, you should do this exercise. Just write down the things that really you passionately love talking about, that you would find interesting, that you'd like to do more research in. What are you interested in? See, when you start selecting a topic, and you get to do that in this course, you're going to give an informative speech next in March, and then you're going to give a persuasive speech in March. Those are the 2 speeches that you give in March. We're going to deal with topics of discussion of input here first, before you give the next speeches. Asking your question, what am I interested in? I mean, if that phone rang today and you were listening to the conversation, I have a phone just up on the shelf here on the window, and somebody were to phone and say, hey, would you be interested in giving a speech? We hear you're a good speech giver. Would you speak on cooking? I'd go like, what? I don't think so. Years ago, my 2 daughters made my wife promise that I would never be made to make a family meal. Cooking's not my thing. I would not get interested in that. I mean, I suppose I should. It's good to know, but it's not a high priority for me. So let me talk about suffering and how to recover from suffering. Okay. I can talk about that. Talk about having walking. You know that I love walking. I can talk about that. I light up like a Christmas tree on those sort of things, but I don't light up about cooking. So, what are you interested in? Brainstorm. Get that down. What experiences have you had? What experiences have you had in the topic that would interest you? You don't have to be my age to say, oh, I have to wait till I'm his age before I have enough experience. No, you have topics that you're interested in. What books or articles are you reading? What courses have you taken? What experiences in life have you gone through that relates to that? Whatever that is. Okay, I have a book entitled Your One Word, and it's written by a Canadian author. I don't think it's a well-written book, but I like that concept. His idea is that we all businesses, organizations, and including people, actually have a word that is the very center of who they are. It describes them. And so I talked to Joanne and I said, well, what's my one word? And she said, your one word is enthusiasm. You ooze enthusiasm. You get very excited about stuff. You speak very quickly. And I've had experience with that. Uh, that really does, and that whole topic of enthusiasm, I enjoy. Another woman was talking to me and she said, well, actually, I think your word is overcomer. You've had so many harsh things happen to you, but you've learned to overcome them. And I think that connects with enthusiasm. And I have experiences of suffering, many at the hands of people, unfairly, wrongly. And I can sit here and tell you lessons I've learned, the power of silence, the power of letting another person try to harm your reputation and realizing that if you speak out all the time, you look guilty. But over time, if you're quiet, there's a point where other people begin to say, why does that person keep attacking you? And you're quiet. At times, it's hard to be quiet, but silence is powerful. It's just that those are some experiences I've had. What are yours? They're not always easy experiences, but they're valuable. What knowledge do you have on the topic? On marriage. My wife and I did seminars for years together. We used to have, in the one church I was serving, we used to have about 340-ish to 350 people come, about 175 couples-ish come to these seminars. And my wife and I were team taught and enjoyed that process together. Did well. We brought a different perspective from a male and a female perspective, which was valuable. And so I have a lot of knowledge about, do I know everything? No, I have much more to still learn. What does your audience know about you? You know, when you're going to speak somewhere, what does your audience know about you? That might be an important question to think about. So that's an important set of questions that you want to, that you really want to think about in asking. So when you're talking about selecting the subject, hey, first of all, think about you, your interests, your experiences, your knowledge. Those are key questions that you should be asking. A second area, factor number 2 is the occasion. There are key questions to the occasion. So you're invited to come speak somewhere. That's an occasion. Okay. And there are all sorts of occasions. Here are some questions. What is the nature of the occasion that you are asked to speak at? Have you just been asked to speak at a funeral? There's a nature to that occasion. Okay. Probably you're celebrating a person's life that was well lived, but you're also doing reflection. It's somber in some ways because that person's no longer alive. And that's painful. And so you have to kind of incorporate that in your thinking. But what is the nature of the occasion that you are asked to speak at? becomes very, very important to think about. Is it one where there'll be a lot of laughter or lots of tears? Lots of thinking about things or not as much? So understanding the occasion that you're speaking. I've done funerals. I've done weddings. I have a brother-in-law in pastoral ministry in Red Deer province next to us. And we talked about who would we rather give a talk to, people at a funeral or people at a wedding? We both agreed, people at a funeral. You might say, whoa, really? Yes. You want to know why? Because the audience is very receptive to things you're saying. They're very sensitive to the brevity of life. They're taking in what you're saying because they're shaken up by the fact that somebody they loved and knew is now gone. And that's not easy to go through. In a wedding, I love doing weddings, but often the bride and the groom are so caught up with each other that they're hardly listening to what you're having to say at the wedding to them. And by the way, if you're not married and you're going to get married, I would suggest you have somebody videotape it so you can listen to what people might say that could be beneficial listening to later when you're not all caught up in the celebration of the wedding itself. So thinking about the nature of the occasion becomes really, really important. What kind of mood will the occasion occasion encourage? Like I said, is it reflective, celebrative, educative? What's the nature of where you're speaking? And that becomes really important. The mood, excuse me, the mood that the occasion will encourage. What mood should be there and be experienced? And so that's valuable for you to think about that when you're speaking. By the way, if somebody phones you and says, hey, we want you to come and we'll pay you $500 for 30 minutes to talk on such and such, you want to ask all these questions. You want to think all these through really carefully before you go there. What are the time limits that are involved? If somebody says, could you speak to us for 30 minutes? You know how much time they really mean? 30 minutes. They mean what they're saying. As a speaker, you need to honor that. Now, in talking about time limits, and you may want a piece of paper to write this down because this will be helpful for your speech. You know that it's a 7-minute speech, which means it should be a 6.5 to a 7.5 minute speech, that time frame, okay? So here's some valuable using mathematics. Here's how to break your speech down. There are 3 parts: an introduction, the body of the speech, and the conclusion. Roughly, you should give about, you could give a little bit less, not much more than this, about 20% of your speech should be the introduction. Okay, let's say it's 20%. And about 65 to 70% of your speech should be the body of the speech. And 10 to 15% should be the conclusion. And we'll get into what is a good introduction and what are you supposed to do, and a good conclusion, what are you supposed to do. We're going to get to that in a bit here. But you may want to think about that. So if it's for the sake of argument, if it's 20, 70, and 10, just roughly, that means that your next speech, if you take a full 7.5 minutes to give your speech, if you give it, that is 450 seconds. That's how long you have to speak. 450 seconds. That means 20 seconds for the introduction means that's about 90 seconds. You know, it might go just a little bit more, a minute and a half, or a little bit more than that, but we'll say 90 seconds to 100 seconds. The conclusion is about half that. So it's about 45 seconds to a minute. So if you give a minute for the introduction and for the sake of argument, 2 minutes for the introduction, that only gives you 4.5 minutes for the body of the speech to 5 minutes, somewhere in that time frame. Let's say you do 1.5 minute introduction and a minute conclusion, and you're going to go 7.5 minutes. That means that you only have about 5 minutes for the body of the speech. And let's say you have 2 major points. That's 2.5 minutes per each part. That's not long. That's not long at all. So you need to think about your time limits. Like when I spoke to that group of people that were significantly hostile towards me, I mentioned, 4 of the 5 groups that organized this were not of an agreement with my philosophical view of life. I had between 50 and 55 minutes. I can't remember if it was 50 or 55 minutes. So at 20% for the introduction, that means at 50 minutes, I could take 10 minutes just on the introduction. On the conclusion, okay, 5 minutes. And on the body of the speech, I could give about 35 minutes to 40 minutes, somewhere in that time frame. And so there's more things I can do, not more principles I can do, but more things I can add in when the speech is longer than a 7-minute speech. That 7-minute speech you're doing is very short. The one that you'll be doing, the 2 of them that you'll be doing in March. So think about your speech and think about 20, 70, and 10%. And then shape an introduction that has 20% of time, conclusion that has 10% time or 10 to 15%. And the middle part is what's left over is for the actual body of the speech. And stay with that. What are the time limits? You need to know those, and then you need to shape your speech in light of that. What will the program consist of if you're going somewhere? Whatever it is. Whether you're going to a family occasion where you're giving a talk at a funeral or a wedding or an anniversary or a birthday or whatever it is, or with an organization, wherever you're doing your speaking, you need to know what the program consists of. It's really important. You do not do it without asking lots of questions, because you can make a mistake. I had to speak at the Professional Secretaries International. It was 2 years in a row. I was given, I think, about 4 hours. 4 hours. Now, we had to take washroom breaks and so forth in there. And there are different parts to what I was talking about. One thing I did not do is ask them, is there anything happening before I start? Never dawned on me to ask that question. Big mistake. Turned out okay, but it was still a big mistake. They asked me to arrive at a certain time, which was significantly earlier than when I'd be speaking, but I understood they want to make sure I'd be there, and they can make sure they mic me up with a microphone and all that sort of stuff. And I was appreciative. They were very organized. And when I got there, that's when I found out part of the reason why they wanted me there to be early. Because, well, I was to start speaking at whatever time it was in the morning. For a half an hour before that, they had a little program. And they were going to have another person speak for 25 minutes as a keynote speaker before I would make full presentation. Then lunch, and then a lady spoke in the afternoon. I left. I didn't have to stay for that. And when I got there, they said, oh, you know, we've asked so-and-so to be our keynote speaker. He will speak for 25 minutes. Now, I wish I'd known that. And here's the reason. The man who was the speaker was well known in the lower mainland. He's well known in British Columbia back a few years ago. He was one of the newscasters on a popular TV program. He was well known. And he would be speaking first. And I got introduced to him. And boy, he was a lot shorter than what he looked like on TV and so forth. And he was good on the news. And I thought, oh man, I'm following him. That puts pressure on me. I mean, all the women know him, I'm sure, but they don't know me. And it proved to be true. He was introduced, and all the women went, ah, you know, he's a popular person. Everything. I'm seeing him live, not just on TV now. And they didn't know me, and they weren't seeing me on TV before. But then he gave me a gift, unfortunate gift. He got up front when it was his time to talk, and he first said, I suppose you all seen me on TV, and all the women went, ah. And I was at the back of the room standing there getting sick to my stomach thinking, ugh. And then he did something that helped me, didn't help him. He said to them, I have 25 minutes to speak. And to be honest with you, I haven't prepared anything. And I'm sitting there saying, what? You just don't give a speech without preparing it. And guess what he did? He spent 25 minutes proving the point that he had nothing to say. For 25 minutes, he talked and it meant nothing. And the room got more and more restless. And so if I'd only known that, though, that he was going to be there, I would have prepared myself mentally. It threw me. And knowing what is on the program helps. And when I got up front, thankfully, I actually been on TV, and I told them, and they all had a great laugh about what story I told. And then I said, I want you to know I have something prepared. I have something prepared for you. And I demonstrated that. Another question, what is the nature of the place where the speech will be given? Then you're told, hey, will you come out here? We'll fly you out. We'll put you up in a hotel. We'll take care of your meals. We'll give you a nice honorarium. Make sure you fly home on time, etc. Okay. What you need to do is say, could you describe the room? Could you even send me some pictures of the room I'll be speaking in? How will the chairs be set up? How close will the audience be to me? Is there room for me to set up for PowerPoint and all those things? You need to ask the nature of the place. Because if you get there, and I blew it on one occasion, if you do that, you could actually blow what you wanted to do. I did this. I was asked to come out to North Dakota, Bismarck, the city of Bismarck, North Dakota. And this organization I was with met every 3 years, and I was asked to do a workshop. And I said, glad to. It was in my field. I understood it. It would be great to do this. So I said, here's how I need the room set up. They said, we'll have it done. Okay, I arrived early enough to be able to walk into the room and check it out. I put my stuff in the hotel, and then I went down and looked at the room. And it was in a big room, and it was in the corner of the room. That was great because that meant that people would be together in that corner, so that wouldn't be too bad. And I prepared good material. So I went up to my room, I relaxed, got changed to my clothes for the presentation. I came down, went to my spot there, and I'm kind of just setting up my material there a little bit earlier than the people. And a guy walks in and he says, hi, and he keeps on walking, and he walks to the other corner of this big room, the opposite corner to me. And I look over, I hadn't even noticed. And they had chairs set up opposite, opposite corner to me, but set up the same way as I had my room, the section of the room set up. And I thought, what? You got it. They had him and me give a presentation to a group of people at the same time in the same room. So I started. All the people came into his, all the people came into mine. I sat down. I mean, my people sat down. I had material ready for them, and I was starting. And then the guy on the other side, the other corner, he said something funny, and his whole group started laughing. And my group were all kind of leaning back, like, what was so funny over there? And then I shared a story, and my audience started laughing, and you could see his audience all kind of leaning back, saying, "Oh, what's so funny over there?" And he and I spent the whole time trying to present and competing with each other to keep our audience attention. Bad news. I wish I'd asked what was going to happen. Make sure you ask so that you're aware of what's happening. Okay, again, the importance of asking questions about yourself. The second, the factor is asking questions about the occasion. The third area is asking questions about your audience. We already went through this once. It's doing understanding your audience. Again, it's about your audience. Ask questions about your audience. What are the important demographic features of the potential audience? Their age, gender, educational level, political philosophy, ethnic background, etc., etc. Does that sound familiar? We just talked about that. I say it again. It's so important. This is so important. We never forget this. When you're doing public speaking, it is about your audience, which means you need to be talking on things that really you're capable of talking on, so that you're passionate about it, which impacts the audience. You need to make sure, absolutely positive, that you understand the occasion, all the realities. Then you need to know your audience. Everything you can. Somebody phones you up, says they want you to come, ask questions about your audience. Why you need to ask the question, why are the members of the audience going to be there? Like, what's their motivation for being there? Not just who are they demographically, but what's their motivation for being there? Are they there because you have a topic that's important to them? Are they there because somebody told them you have to go there? What's their motivation? Know everything you can about your audience, about their motivation, and why they're there. Ask and find out what the interests of the audience is. Know everything you can. How, what you're talking about, how does that relate to where their interests are? Ask the questions. Ask the questions. What do the listeners know about the topic or the subject already? So you can build on that. Remember, if you were asked to come speak to a snow skiing group of people, you need to know your audience. If you find out that these people have never skied before, your topic, your talk is going to be much more focused on the basics. If this is the Canadian national ski team, you're going to have to be more advanced in the topics you're talking on to hold their attention. Now, that is the issue of selecting the subject. Okay, those three questions. The purpose of the speech. Okay, the purpose of the speech. There really are two major, there are four, really three or four major thoughts here, or types, okay, that you can give. One is to entertain, which is not what you do in this course. I mean, I should say, you shouldn't say you shouldn't entertain, but that's not the focus. Entertaining, the main function of the purpose of it is to amuse, enthrall, or divert attention for a period of time. I was part of a small group, and we decided once that we were going to go out to hear this comedian do a talk on a platform, on a stage in downtown Vancouver. Big auditorium, big stage. The guy is nationally known, and when he walked out with a chair. There's nothing else on the platform. He was walking out, and we all started laughing. He stopped. He looked at us like, "What are you laughing at?" Oh, he knew though. We were laughing because we knew he was a comedian and he was going to get us laughing, and we were there to be entertained. And just his very presence of walking out with a chair was amusing to us, and we laughed, and we were there for a good time to be entertained. Now, examples of entertaining is a description of a place, trip, or a narration of a suspense or humor. In this case, this speaker was humor. Now, you're not doing this in this class. This is not one of the speeches you're to give. This is the next speech you are going to give, and I will talk more about the informative speech a little bit later. But this is the introduction to it. The main function is to help the audience comprehend new information and help them make desired responses. Is to help them comprehend new information. Now, you might do a slight bit of persuasion, but really this is more on the educative side. It is to broaden knowledge of understanding. It doesn't mean you still don't reach the heart of the audience. You do want to do that, and you do want to call them to something, absolutely. But it is significantly to inform them, and that's one purpose. And that's the next speech you're giving. Is the purpose is to inform. So if you say, I'm really interested in the topic of heart surgery. You're there to inform us about heart surgery. Okay? And so information should be valuable from that perspective. Minimally, the speaker wants the audience to be able to remember, to reflect on, and to consider using the main ideas of the speech as applicable to them. So, minimally, you want us to remember. Now, just so you hear, I have a book. I don't think it's up in this library. It's probably downstairs in my other library. A woman who wrote a book. She has 2 doctoral degrees. And she wrote this book on this area, in part, about learning. And there is this theory about how much people remember. And you may think, I will be the exception. You won't be the exception. But roughly, the graph shows how much people remember 7 days later. And like if you talk to them right after you speak, they remember more. But the first day it drops precipitously, and the second and third and fourth day, by the time the 5th, 6th day, it's quite low. By the 7th day, the most they'll remember is about 10% of what you said, if you've been good at impacting people. Okay, so having people remember, that means you need to make it memorable for people to remember. I have speeches I've listened to, I still remember them very well because they were impactful. I remember at a graduation ceremony for a college I was a part of, and the speaker had a bag, and as he was speaking, he would take the bag had rocks in them, small rocks, hand rocks, and they're all different shape, and they were all kind of nicely polished, and he put one on this counter and he spoke, and that rock represented that. And he took out another rock. He had 5 of them. He had 5 major thoughts. Each rock represented something. That was memorable. Doing what you can to help people remember is pretty important. To help them remember, but not just remember, reflect. Remember, cognitive is to remember. Cognitive, to reflect is affective. It hits the emotive level. And to consider using is behavioral. It's doing something with the ideas that's given. And so you do want to inform for us to remember, to reflect on, and to apply in our lives. It's not enough if you're teaching us about brushing our teeth to help us know what a toothbrush is. But you want us to value the toothbrush and actually hold it, and you want us to actually practice it so that we become people who brush our teeth 2 to 3 times a day. I had a speech on that, by the way, from a class that was all full of dentists. The next speech is the general purpose is to persuade. 4 potential objectives, and this speech is the second. The informative speech and then the persuasive speech you're going to be giving in class. We're going to go through this more later. Here are 4 objectives. Creating a new attitude might be maybe people don't have an attitude about something and you want to establish one. Maybe you want to change the existing attitude direction. Maybe they are all thinking no, 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 but you want them to say yes, 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 yes. Changing an existing attitude intensity from, oh, well, whatever, to this is important, different intensity. Or you want a behavioral response. Maybe that's the biggest issue you want to bring about. We need people to give some strong persuasive speeches to have people understanding that taking the vaccine is a very wise thing to do. You want to create an attitude of this is good. To change an attitude for people who are saying I'm not doing it, to people who are saying, you know what, I think it's important. To have people change their intensity to we all need to do it, to changing it to a behavior where I did it. So we'll get into persuasive speaking a little bit later again. Now, this is the last little part here. I'm going to do this very quickly and then we're done. Okay. I'm just looking here. I'm missing something here. Okay, the specific purpose. Here it is. Okay, so there is the general purpose, to entertain, to inform, to persuade. Now, specific purposes. The specific purpose identifies a particular focus and objective of the speech. What is the intent of the speech? What is it? I want my students, I want my audience by the end of this speech to understand the importance of brushing the teeth, to value brushing their teeth, and I want them to be brushing their teeth 2 or 3 times a day. I had a speech on that from a dentist to other dentists. Precise wording is used in a single sentence. This is for you, the speaker. You should be able to say in a single sentence what the specific purpose was. Let me just show you something. I've got about 2 minutes. That's a minute and a half. This is my doctoral dissertation. This is my doctoral dissertation. This sentence right up here is the precise wording of what this doctoral dissertation is about. Let me read it to you. I don't even need to read it. I know it off by heart. It's a study of job factors, of satisfiers and dissatisfiers of members of the National Association of Directors of Christian Education. All there. Do you know how long that took me to come up with that sentence? 3 months. 3 months. My major professor kept bouncing me around and then I kept trying to develop this, and he was teaching me how precision was necessary at this point. You get this right, then your dissertation is likely to go a lot better. And one day I came up with that sentence and I knew that was it. I walked in to see him. His name's Dr. Carpenter. And I said, here, and he started to kind of attack it to see how I'd handle it. And I pushed back. And he said, smiled and said, now you got it. Now you can do your dissertation. Specific purpose, the precise wording of the specific purpose is really critical. In your speech, can you in a single sentence say this is what the speech is about? The specific purpose aids in efficient speech prep. Once you got that down, you can structure your speech. It's a lot easier. Spend time getting that single sentence down. The specific purpose helps the speaker narrow the topic to fit within the time limits given for the speech. You don't have more than 6.5 to 7.5 minutes. You cannot cover the world. Don't even try. It won't work. So the specific purpose needs to be concise and clean. In a single sentence, what is your speech about? Well, that covers this area, talking about selecting the subject and the purpose of the speech. Critical area. And I am done. I remind you, we do not meet next week. Okay, we're not meeting next week. And to you students who are going to be watching this a little bit later, you are reminded that you have to watch it. Then you need to email me all the topics that you've watched so that I mark you as having been in class, even though it's through YouTube. That's it. We will see you a week. Not this coming week, but the following Monday, we will see you at that time. So have a good week, and next week, reading break, and then we'll see you the week following. Take care. Bye.
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 All right. Bye.
Bye-bye, sir.
Goodbye.